One of the most widespread fashion influences of the decade was the so-called new look that Paris designer Christian Dior introduced in the late 40s. Dior's cinched waists and accentuated hips and bosoms spread like wildfire through the fashion world and paved the way for a new 50s style screen glamour, summed up in a single word: curves.
Wow. Boy, oh boy.
Check your passport right over there.
Thank you.
Pardon, please. Is this the way to Europe, France?
To where?
Not Europe, France, honey. France is in Europe. Well, who said it wasn't?
It was popular in the 50s to be kind of Zoftic. The Jane Russells, and even Monroe was kind of a big girl. It was perfectly all right to have a big bust and a small waist and big hips, and they all wore waist cinches and push-ups, and it was just a different look.
Steve, suppose the ship hit an iceberg and sank. Which one would you save from drowning?
Those girls couldn't drown.
Glamour was no longer about Garbo-like allure. Now it was a little naughtier, a little sexier, and a lot more voluptuous.
Further away, surrounded by admirers, we find Jane Russell, the girl whose figure is her fortune.
Jane, of course, I think, was the first big and beautiful lady that we had on the screen. You know, we saw stills of her in The Outlaw for 2 years before we ever saw the movie. If you watch Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, I mean, Russell's a big lady. I mean, big thighs, big bosom.
Talk about a well-rounded girl. She's big.
Doesn't anyone want to play?
And gorgeous.
I like big muscles and red corpuscles. I like a beautiful hunk of man.
Most of the taller gals in pictures were around 5'7", maybe 8. It's hard when you know what you can wear and someone else doesn't, and they're doing the usual thing. Fittings were awful, just awful. Most of them were into belts and full skirts and things that I just knew I couldn't wear. But the clothes in Blondes, they were fabulous.
I just can't wait. For what? Dorothy. Didn't you notice? His pocket was bulging.
Yeah, that could be a bag of gumdrops.
No, it was a square bulge, like a box for a ring. I think he's got a present for me.
You know, I think you're the only girl in the world that can stand on a stage with a spotlight in her eye and still see a diamond inside a man's pocket.
Marilyn Monroe was an incredible phenomenon in the world.
Good evening, Mr. Esmond. Won't you pray come in?
Thank you.
You know what I loved about her was that she was so incredibly common. You know, I mean that in an exalted, I mean that as a real compliment. I mean, you know, she could come in from doing grocery shopping with grocery bags and look like a dream.
Yes? What is it?
I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but I forgot the key to my front door, so I had to ring your bell. I feel so silly.
It was all about the sweater girl, the bosom, the backside, flirting with your body.
Yes, would you mind pressing it again?
Press what?
The button. My fan's caught in the door.
Their clothes were skin tight. I mean, whether there was any underwear involved, you felt like, I'm not sure.
Oh, say.
I figured it just isn't right to drink champagne in matador pants. Would you mind fastening my straps in the back?
Oh, sure.
Marilyn Monroe has certainly been influential on clothing, not because the clothing that she wore in films or in real life was so distinctive, but because she really became such an icon of sensuality.
Yes, when it's hot like this, you know what I do? I keep my undies in the icebox.
In the icebox?
We keep bringing back, every couple of years, the white halter dress that Marilyn Monroe wore in the 7-Year Itch when she stood over a subway grate on Lexington Avenue.
Oh, do you feel the breeze from the subway? Isn't it delicious?
If it's a year of mid-calf clothes, we bring it back. If it's a year of short dresses, we bring it back. But it's always that dress. And it's always white, and it always comes out in the summer. And it's always known as the Marilyn dress, and people always buy it.
We have these goddesses that we secretly, somewhere we all think about. They're sort of embedded in our psyches. If the French have Marie Antoinette, we have Marilyn to emulate, to think about for the rest of our history.
Marilyn's white halter dress was picked straight off the rack. something that would have appalled the original studio designers, but would increasingly become the norm as the decades went on. Even as the Hollywood costume designers spent more time shopping and less time designing, the high-fashion couturiers were dipping into film. There'd already been some crossover. Schiaparelli, Dior, and Chanel had all designed for film, but the most famous partnership between designer and star was yet to come.